Hi, I'm Gardener Scott. Like many gardeners, I tend to grow many of the same plants year after year, but I really don't like buying the seeds of those plants year after year. So when I can, I collect and save seeds of the plants that I know I'll be planting again. One of the easiest plants is cilantro. So join me as I collect my cilantro seeds. Cilantro is one of those herbs that my family and I love. Now, I understand that it's also one of those herbs that you either love it or you hate it. But for those who love it and want to grow it in their garden, it's a perfect plant for growing, enjoying, allowing to flower, and then collecting and saving the seeds so you can repeat the process all over again. Cilantro is normally harvested young and just for the leaves, but if allowed to grow, it will develop all these pretty little white flowers. And these white flowers will all develop into seeds. And so over the course of the summer, I allow the cilantro plants to continue growing, to send up these shoots of cilantro seeds. And by the end of the summer, these seeds will have dried on the plant after maturing, and they'll be ready for harvest. It takes a few months for the seeds to dry on the plant, and I actually prefer that they dry on the plant, which makes this a really good early fall project, assuming that you've been growing the cilantro all summer long. When you store seeds, you want to make sure the seeds are completely dry. And so allowing these cilantro seeds to dry on the plant helps me get a head start on that process. And it also helps ensure that all of these seeds have reached maturity and are viable. And so with the seeds dried, they're ready to harvest. One option is to just take a paper bag and cut off these little umbels of seeds and let them fall right into the paper bag. And you can just go through the whole plant and cut off what used to be flowers. Or you can take the plant and just pull off a group of seeds and drop them into the bag. But what I find is the easiest way is to just strip the seeds from the plant. The cilantro is a pretty tough plant, and as you pull the seeds off, you may pull off part of the stem, but you're just as likely to pull off groups of individual seeds. I find stripping the seeds off with just my fingers to be very effective and pretty quick. And depending on how many plants you let go to seed, you may have quite a few. So I'll just continue stripping off these seeds, dropping them into my bag. And when they're all done, I'll head inside. We'll separate the seeds from the stalks, and they'll be ready for storing. I let 5 of my cilantro plants go to seed, and those are the seeds that I collected in my brown paper bag. Now the question arises, of course, is it worth the effort? This is a packet of organic cilantro seeds, similar to the one that I used to plant my cilantro. This packet has 2 grams of seeds, and each of those grams will cost about $2.80 if purchased online. So now I'll separate out these seeds, I'll weigh them, and I'll determine how much money I saved. I'll begin by just placing the seeds onto a plate. And you can see that many of the stems are still connected. But you can also notice how many of the seeds have already separated, and the large numbers of individual seeds. And now I'll continue doing what I started doing outside, and that's to take these individual umbels of seed and just pull off the individual seeds from the top. And then I'll discard the stem, and I'll just throw it into the brown paper bag and add it to the compost pile later on. The process is very easy. Just with your fingers, pinch off the seeds and add them to the others on the plate. You'll see that they come off as individual seeds. So it's pretty easy to just go through taking all these little stems that remain and pulling off the individual seeds. Along the way, I'll come across some of these seeds that haven't fully matured. They're pretty small, no much more than just a dried flower. And so I'll discard these. There's no reason to put these in with the other seeds. I also looked for these small, immature seeds outside when I was removing the seeds in the first place. It saves you a little bit of effort if you just don't waste your time on these immature seed heads. And what I'm left with, after I've separated out the twigs and the stems, is a plate filled with cilantro seeds. There are still little bits of the stems attached to these seeds. So at this point, I'll actually give them a rub between my hands to try to separate the seeds from those little bits of stems. After I feel pretty good that most of the seeds are separated from the stems, I can remove some of the larger stem pieces at this time, and this can take a little while. So I've discovered a shortcut that may help out. I have a colander that's actually got very large holes. So what I'll do is pour the seeds and the twigs into this colander. The holes are large enough for the cilantro seeds to fall straight through. And what's left behind on top are most of those larger twigs. There's also a lot of chaff from the little bits of dried petals that are on the plate. So I'll try to leave as much of that behind as I can too, and just put the seeds into the colander. This helps make separating the seeds that much easier. There will probably still be a few seeds attached to a couple stems, but those are real easy to separate. And once all the seeds have fallen through, I'll just pour the stems into the paper bag. So I have most of the little bits and most of the big bits removed. Now it's time to clean it up and try to remove as many of those little twigs that remain. This is what you'll have to do if you don't have a colander with big holes, is to go through, move the seeds to the side, pull out these little twigs, and hopefully just be left with seeds and very few bits of anything else. There always seems to be one more twig hiding underneath the seeds. So you only need to do this until you feel that the seeds are cleaned up as well as you'd like them to be. There's still a lot of dust and chaff at the bottom of the seeds on this plate. And I'm lucky to have a second colander with holes that are smaller than the cilantro seeds. So what I'll do with this colander is pour the seeds in, and all those little bits of dust and chaff will fall through. And what I'm left with is a nice bowl of cilantro seeds. You can see how much needed to be cleaned up. Now, if you don't have a colander like that, you can still separate out all this little bit of chaff. The best way I've found to do that is by taking the cilantro seeds and just tipping them back and forth between plates. And each time, the little bit of chaff that remains can be discarded. I'll pour the seeds back onto a clean plate, and I can still see more of those pesky twigs, so I'll try to remove as many of them as I can at this point. But for the most part, the seeds have been separated. And now it's time to weigh the seeds to see how much money we saved by collecting our own. I have my scale set to grams, and now I'll just pour the seeds on. And luckily, some of those pesky twigs were left behind on that plate. So, how much do we have? 35 grams. 35 grams of seeds at $2.80 a gram is almost $100 worth of cilantro seeds. Now, I wouldn't normally buy this many seeds, but it definitely gives me lots of options to grow, to give away, and to just say that I collected $100 worth of cilantro seeds. Now, the package that I started with was organic seeds. I practice organic gardening, and so that means that these are organic seeds as well. So, by collecting my own seeds, I can save money, I can ensure that they're organic, and I know the history of these seeds. I know how they grew, I know what kind of plant was grown from them, and I know that it's something that I like in my garden. And that is the best reason of all why I collect cilantro seeds. But another reason, this is coriander. If you've ever cooked with coriander in your kitchen, it's nothing more than cilantro seeds. So there's another reason with all these extra seeds that I have that I won't be able to grow in my garden, I'll just put them in my kitchen. And there you have it. That's how I collect cilantro seeds. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know below. If you haven't subscribed to the Gardener Scott channel, you can do so now. And if you like this video, you can give me a thumbs up and share it. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.